I paid for almost everything that night. The rooftop loft, perched like a crown over downtown Chicago mine. The floor-to-ceiling windows, the vintage Edison bulbs strung in calculated disarray, the white linens, the bar stocked with top-shelf gin I never drank. Mine. The catering, the sound system, the soft security guards in tight black shirts who smiled too much. All of it paid from my accounts. Quietly, without thanks, without question. Lauren, my wife, called herself the initiator. The face behind the vision. She floated from group to group in a deep green dress, smiling like it had all just come together through the sheer force of her elegance. As if she had summoned the venue by whispering into the wind. She told people it had been her dream for years, to host a charity gala that meant something. She said the words with her hand gently placed over her chest like she could feel the sincerity radiate from her own skin. She never mentioned me. Not once. On the printed program handed out at the entrance, her name was at the top, followed by the children's, Chloe and Braden. In proud collaboration, it read, with local youth leaders. I wasn't listed at all. Not as a co-organizer. Not as a donor. Not even as family. When I asked her, gently, a week before the event, why my name wasn't included anywhere, she smiled like I'd missed the point. It's better not to mix family and money, she said, pouring herself coffee from the pot I'd brewed. It makes people uncomfortable. She kissed my cheek and added, you know this isn't about you, right? Of course I knew. It was never about me. Not in this house. At the gala, Chloe moved like she belonged to a different class. 18, poised, cold-eyed. The sort of girl who had grown up believing that charm was a birthright and gratitude was beneath her. She wore a cream-colored dress I'd bought, paired with heels that cost more than my first car. Her brother Braden, just 16, had taken to wearing slim-cut suits and speaking like a man who thought wisdom came prepackaged in a blazer. He'd shake hands, nod thoughtfully, then drift back to his phone. Both of them basked in the praise, the attention, the congratulations. The night hummed with curated elegance. A jazz trio played softly near the terrace. Guests sipped and posed and spoke in those low, performative tones reserved for cocktail politics. I stood at the back of the room by the bar, watching, always watching. A woman in pearls leaned close to Chloe and asked if she'd managed to pull all this off herself. Chloe's answer came without hesitation. Yes, she said, voice bright and unshaking. My mom and I planned everything. It's been exhausting. I watched the lie land like a feather on glass. No one questioned it. Nobody thought to ask who booked the venue, who signed the catering contracts, who wired the deposits and emailed the vendors. I carried that night like I had carried this family. Silently, invisibly. I wasn't supposed to exist unless something broke. As the sun went down, the city turned to gold through the glass. People clapped, laughed, toasted. Chloe took the microphone for the dinner speech. Her voice rang out in the delicate hush, practiced and confident. She thanked the donors, names I recognized from the accounting sheets I'd assembled. She thanked the volunteers, the caterers, the guests. She thanked her mother, her brother, the spirit of youth. Then she turned slightly, smiling toward my table. And of course, she said, voice smooth, we can't forget the man who made sure the floors were clean and the lights were turned on. The cleaner of the house. Nothing more. The room shifted. You could hear the oxygen rearranging itself. Some people chuckled, unsure whether it was a joke or just cruelty served with a smile. A few looked down into their drinks. One or two laughed fully, eyes darting toward me for permission. I gave them nothing. Lauren stepped into the spotlight next to her daughter and leaned toward the mic, brushing a stray hair back from Chloe's shoulder. Nobody really takes him seriously here, she said, voice light, lips curled. That's when I felt it, the laugh. Low, hesitant, and then growing, like someone had opened a valve. It wasn't loud, but it was enough. A ripple of polite discomfort moved through the room. Guests glanced toward me, their expressions strained with artificial amusement. No one stood up. No one said a word in my defense. Because I wasn't supposed to be there. Not really. I was background noise. The man with a checkbook and no spine. A wallet with eyes. I smiled. Not wide. Just enough. I didn't flinch. Didn't speak. Didn't even blink. I nodded once and returned to my seat at the corner table. Alone. They didn't notice. Their laughter moved on to another story. Another staged anecdote. The gala resumed. The music picked up. The lights shifted warmer. But I sat in the shadows and tasted the last confirmation I needed. Not betrayal, I'd felt that long before. This was something colder. Recognition. I saw in that moment exactly what I was to them. A resource. A stepping stone. A man whose sacrifices could be packaged, polished, and erased in the same breath. Lauren didn't look at me again that evening. She danced, posed for photographs, took selfies with Chloe and Braden near the charity backdrop that bore their names. Not mine. Never mine. People posted photos. Mother-daughter power duo. Future leaders of Chicago. Dream team. The captions came in waves. I watched the hashtags bloom on my phone like weeds. When the dinner ended, Lauren waved from the elevator and said they were heading to a friend's afterparty. Chloe winked. Braden rolled his eyes like a cartoon. Don't wait up, she said. I didn't. I walked alone through the emptying venue, nodding at the caterers as they packed up trays and collected glasses. I thanked the security staff, tipped the bartender, shook hands with the sound technician, the people who had done the actual work. My people. By the time I reached the car, the night air had turned. The skyline no longer looked beautiful. It looked hollow, ornamental, like something built to keep people staring upward while the foundation quietly rotted. I didn't go out. I didn't drink. I didn't rage. I went home. The lights were still on when I entered. The house smelled of expensive candles and unused furniture. I walked into my office and sat down. It was quiet there, clean, the way I kept it. The door clicked shut behind me like a verdict, and I began printing. Not a cancellation notice, not a credit freeze, not revenge, just facts. A detailed report. Mortgage payments broken down by year, account number, and date. Tuition transfers for Chloe's private school and Braden's SAT prep. Health insurance premiums. Flight bookings. Vehicle registrations. Utility bills. Grocery delivery subscriptions. Every dollar categorized, signed, timestamped. The printer whirred into the night. Each page a slab of truth. I stacked them into a folder with care. At the top, I placed one more document, printed in bold. Notice of financial withdrawal and asset division. I left it on the kitchen table, right in the center, next to their half-used candle and the crystal bowl they'd bought with my money. Then I turned off the light and went to bed. They came home past midnight. I heard the keys in the door, the laughter trailing in behind them. Lauren's heels clicked across the tile. Chloe was still reciting some compliment she'd received. Braden was half listening. Nobody mentioned me. Until the morning. That's when I heard the silence shift. Chairs sliding. Pages rustling. Breath catching in throats. I didn't walk in. I didn't need to. I already knew what their faces looked like. I didn't come into the kitchen right away. I waited. From the bedroom I heard them. Pages turning. Silence stretched thin between sentences. No footsteps. No plates. No breakfast sounds. Just the weight of realization sinking into their bones. The sound of entitlement meeting its first denial. Lauren spoke first. What is this? Not afraid. Just confused. Still sure of her footing. Chloe followed. Her voice always held the upper hand. Mom, is this a joke? What is this? Braden didn't say a word. He never did when things tilted out of his favor. His silence was always the safest place to hide. I walked in slowly. No announcement. Just the quiet drag of slippers on tile. I sat at the end of the table, poured myself a cup of coffee, and looked at none of them. The folder sat open between them like an autopsy report. Lauren reached for composure like it was a missing earring. What is this supposed to mean, Michael? It's not a threat, I said. It's clarity. She laughed, dry and false. Clarity? What are you talking about? Chloe picked up the first page, her face tight. She read aloud like she was exposing a lie. Mortgage payments, January through December. Transferred from Michael's business account. All 12 months. Seriously? She looked up, eyes sharp, voice already climbing. You made this? What's the point? I didn't make it, I said, sipping the coffee. I recorded it. That's the difference. Lauren flipped further. Health insurance, vehicle registration, school fees, Chloe's tutoring, Braden's sat proctoring airline tickets? I nodded. All of it. Just so there's no confusion about how this house stayed standing. You're overreacting, she snapped. This is unnecessary. Chloe dropped the papers like they were dirty. It's so dramatic. What, are you trying to humiliate us? No, I said. I'm trying to make you see. What exactly are we supposed to be seeing? Lauren said, leaning back in her chair. Her voice was getting tight now, clipped. That you're a martyr? Is that it? You want applause for acting like a father? No, I said again. I want recognition that I was one. Braden looked away. Of the three of them, he at least had the decency to flinch. I'm not doing this, Lauren muttered, pushing back her chair. I'm not sitting here being accused of what? Being ungrateful? I didn't look at her. I looked at Chloe. You stood in a room full of strangers and told them I was the cleaner. Nothing more. Her mouth opened. Shut. Then, it was a joke. No, it was the truth. Your truth. Said out loud. She scoffed. You're twisting this. Everyone laughed. You even smiled. I smiled. I said. So I wouldn't scream. Lauren turned to me, arms crossed. So what, this is revenge? You want to take your ball and go home? I pointed at the folder. This is the home. That ball, it was never yours. You lived in it. You played with it. You took it for granted. I just stopped passing it to you. Braden spoke then, quietly. What does it mean? You're not paying anymore? I met his eyes. Correct. For what? School? Groceries? For anything. Lauren stood fully now. Her chair scraped loudly across the tile. You can't just shut everything off. I can, I said. And I did. I've withdrawn from the joint accounts. I've shut down the tuition auto payments. The utilities have been transferred into your name. Chloe's car insurance is canceled. Braden's phone bill, unpaid next cycle. Health insurance continues through end of month. After that, you're on your own. Chloe stared. You're insane. Maybe, I said, but I'm not invisible anymore. Lauren stepped forward, her tone shifting into accusation. This is financial abuse. You're punishing us because you didn't get your ego stroked at some fundraiser? I almost laughed. Almost. No, this isn't abuse. This is accountability. If I were punishing you, I would have done it years ago. When Braden told me I wasn't real family. When Chloe refused to speak to me on her birthday because her dad didn't show up and I wasn't him. When you let all of it slide, Lauren. When you told me to understand because they were going through things. I endured it. Quietly. I provided. I gave. Lauren crossed her arms. You're their stepfather. That's what you signed up for. No, I said. What I signed up for was partnership. Family. What I got was servitude. Chloe stood too. You're pathetic. No, I said. I'm done. I left the kitchen then. Walked into my office. Closed the door. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't scream into a pillow or shatter anything. I started writing. Emails to the financial advisor, to the attorney, to the bank manager, to the accountant who handled the trust fund I had once considered building for Braden. Gone now. I wasn't erasing history. I was finalizing it. Drawing the ledger line beneath the life they pretended I had no stake in. 3 hours later, Lauren knocked on the door. I didn't answer. She knocked again. Then she spoke, low and slow, like someone testing the temperature of ice. You think this'll hold up in court? You think some judge is going to side with you? I said nothing. The house is half mine. It was bought before the marriage, I said through the door. In my name, with my down payment. We can contest that. You can try. Then she said it. You're destroying this family. I opened the door. You destroyed it years ago. I'm just stopping the payments on the wreckage. She flinched finally. Her eyes widened like I'd struck her. I stepped past her, walked back into the kitchen. Chloe and Braden were still sitting there, the folder now closed but not untouched. I looked at them. I will never ask for respect again. I'll just remove myself when it's gone. You called me nothing. So now I am. Chloe didn't look at me. Braden looked like he wanted to. Lauren stood in the doorway, pale. I poured another coffee. The room was dead silent. I'm not angry, I said. That would imply I still expected better. Lauren stepped forward again. So what now? You walk away from everything? After all these years? I turned toward her. No. I walk away from pretending this was ever mutual. Then I left the room, went to the master bedroom, closed the door. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Not because it was over, because it had finally started. Lauren didn't speak to me for 3 days. She cooked like nothing had happened, cleaned, smiled politely at the silence. But there was frost on everything she touched. Her quiet was a wee *p*n. She thought she could starve me out, thought this was a tantrum, that I'd blink first. She'd underestimated the depth of my exhaustion. Day 4, a letter arrived, official seal, university emblem on the envelope. She opened it at the kitchen island, expecting another alumni update or student progress report. Instead, I heard the intake of breath. Sharp, sudden. The kind of sound a person makes when their foot finds a hole in the floor they thought was solid. She called my name. I didn't answer. Then I heard her reading. We regret to inform you that tuition for the spring semester remains unpaid. If balance is not settled within 10 business days, enrollment will be suspended and all student housing benefits revoked. The words tumbled out, brittle. When I finally stepped into the room, she held the letter out like a hostage note. Michael, this has to be a mistake. It's not, I said. You canceled the tuition payments? I did. But you promised. I promised when I was respected, I said. Not mocked, not erased. Chloe wasn't home that morning. Braden sat at the table, scrolling his phone, headphones in. He didn't even glance up. Lauren pressed the letter against her chest like it might warm her. She'll be expelled. She'll be educated, I said. But not on my dime. Her voice dropped. This is cruel. No, I said. This is proportionate. She went silent again. Not in protest. In calculation. Lauren was always recalculating, remeasuring, rebalancing her life when variables shifted. She thought this would pass like a cold wind, inconvenient but temporary. Then Braden's card got declined. The next evening, I heard him storming through the house, angry, loud, stomping like a boy denied his toys. He came to me finally not to ask but to accuse. Why is my phone off? Because I stopped paying for it. What the hell, man? I met his eyes. He flinched. Talk to your mother. She said it's your account. That's right. He looked at me like I'd betrayed him. Like my patience had been oxygen and I'd stolen the air. You can't just cut me off. I didn't. You pushed me out. I'm just honoring the request. You're the adult. You're supposed to. To what? I snapped. To provide endlessly while being treated like a stranger in my own house? To nod politely while your sister publicly humiliates me and your mother applauds? He looked away. Call your father, I said. Ask him to take over. You know he won't. Then you should have thought of that before burning the bridge that carried you. That was the moment it started to break. Not in rage, not in screams, but in silence. Chloe came home 2 hours later. She walked into the kitchen, saw the letter still on the counter, and went cold. Is this real? She asked. Her voice lost the bravado. You're not paying my tuition anymore? No, I said. She laughed short, forced. You can't do that. It's already mid-semester. I can. And I did. She looked at Lauren, who stayed quiet. That silence, it said everything. The alliance was cracked. For once, Lauren had no words. Not because she agreed with me, but because she finally understood I wasn't bluffing. Chloe pointed at me. "You're ruining my life." "No," I said. "You ruined the illusion. I'm just making it real." "You're pathetic." "No, I'm free." That night she didn't eat dinner. Neither did Braden. Lauren made a salad and left it in the fridge. I poured myself a drink and listened to the silence of a house without gratitude. I didn't gloat. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt clean. The next morning, Lauren tried again, softly, strategically. "I spoke to Chloe's school," she said over coffee. "They said if payment is received within a week, she won't be penalized. She can finish the semester." I said nothing. "Michael," she said, "be reasonable." "I was reasonable," I said. "For years. Now I'm fair." She set down her cup hard enough to splash. "She's 18, she said. "She doesn't know what she's doing." She knew enough to mock me, publicly. She was nervous. She was cruel. "She's your stepdaughter." "No," I said. "She's your daughter. That's always been the distinction, hasn't it?" Lauren didn't argue. She didn't correct me, because there was nothing left to say. That afternoon, Chloe's car got towed from campus. I know because she called Lauren in a panic. I watched from the hallway as Lauren listened, pacing, her voice tight. "No, I can't. No, he canceled the insurance." "Yes, I told you. I don't know. You'll have to figure something out, Chloe." She didn't look at me once during the call. Braden followed a day later. His gaming subscription cut off mid-session. His data plan hit 0. His Uber account rejected his payment request. He came to my office door. "I need to get to school," he said. "I missed my bus. Mom's at work." "There's a bike in the garage," I said. His mouth fell open. "You're serious?" I nodded. "You're just gonna let me bike in this weather? You let me be humiliated in a room full of people. Weather won't k*LLU." He said nothing, just turned and walked away. The calls started next. Todd, their biological father, rang twice, then texted. "Can we talk? I heard some things." I didn't reply. I waited. Let the discomfort marinate. 3 days later, he called again. This time, I answered. "Hey man," he said, voice falsely warm. "So, listen. I heard the kids are dealing with some changes. Lauren's a little overwhelmed. Thought maybe we could, talk it through." "Nothing to talk about," I said. "Come on, Mike. This is kinda out of nowhere, don't you think?" "No," I said. "It's 20 years overdue." Okay, he said, tone shifting. "But we gotta think about the kids." "You mean your kids?" Silence. I kept going. "They've carried your name, your blood, your holidays, your praise, all while I carried the cost." He exhaled. "I can't pick up everything overnight. You've had 18 years. He tried to shift again. "Let's be rational." "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm done." "Jesus, what do you want me to say?" "I don't want anything," I said. "It's your turn." He hung up. Lauren came to me that night, exhausted. "He's not going to help," she said. "I know. What happens now?" "You downsize. You budget. You adapt. And the kids. They grow up." She sat at the kitchen table, pale. "They're not ready. They never will be. Because you never made them be." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't soften. Pity was the leash they always reached for when power failed. That weekend, Chloe applied for emergency aid at her college. Braden sold his gaming console. Lauren cut up a credit card in the sink. The house turned quiet. Not peaceful, just hollow. The illusion had cracked. The scaffolding was gone. One evening, Lauren whispered, "We thought you'd always be there." That was the problem. The messages started small. A single line from Chloe, sent late at night. "Now I understand." I stared at it for a full minute before locking my phone and setting it face down on the table. She understood. That's what she said. 3 words. Neat, tidy, like understanding was a sponge that could wipe away everything that had come before it. But understanding doesn't erase what you said with conviction. It doesn't unring a microphone. Doesn't silence the laughter that followed your cruelty like a wake. Understanding is not repentance. It's not love. It's the sound a hollow house makes when the roof starts to sag. She didn't write again. Neither did Braden. The house was quiet now. But not the kind of quiet you hope for. Not peace. Not rest. This was the kind of silence you find in ruins. In old places where people lived badly and left too much unsaid. You could still hear them, faintly, in the way the floor creaked. Ghosts of raised voices and passive glances. The sound of a family pretending it wasn't falling apart. Lauren moved like someone whose reflection frightened her. Each morning, she poured her coffee slower. She set the mug down gentler, as if noise itself was offensive now. Her eyes were always searching, always looking for the man I used to be, the one who took punches in silence and smiled through condescension. But that man was gone, starved out, buried beneath paperwork and deposit receipts. She asked me once, just once, if things could go back. Back to before the gala. Back to the time when I said yes more than no. When I mistook sacrifice for love. When I paid their bills and carried their resentments like a mule convinced he was part of the herd. We were in the living room. She was folding laundry. Not hers, Braden's. Still, even now, I was watching the ceiling, wondering when the last time was that someone folded something of mine. Michael, she said softly, can we find our way back? I turned to her. Back to what? She hesitated. Back to when we were a family. I shook my head. Not with anger, just with honesty. We were never a family, Lauren. I was a funding model. You were an ambassador. And the kids were royalty. She set the laundry down, her hands trembling slightly. That's not true. It is, I said. You just didn't see it because you were always looking the other way. I didn't know they felt that way about you. You did, I said. You just hoped I'd swallow it. She didn't answer. There was a time when that silence would have hurt me. But I'd stopped bleeding months ago. Chloe finished her semester. Barely. Financial aid scraped together enough to cover the gaps. But the damage was done. Her name, once floated through gala speeches and LinkedIn bios, now clung to a payment plan she couldn't afford. She took a job over the summer. Part-time. Retail. She didn't tell us. I found out when a former colleague recognized her folding jeans at a downtown department store. Braden dropped out of soccer. Too expensive. The private coach I used to pay for? Gone. So was the gym membership, the tutoring, the custom cleats. He started spending more time in his room, face pale from LED light, mouth curled in that permanent teenage scowl that boys wear when the world finally tells them no. Lauren tried to fill the cracks. She made their favorite meals again. She offered to help with school forms, rescheduled doctor appointments. She looked for coupons, cut corners. She became frugal. Suddenly, the woman who once scoffed at store brands was comparing prices on laundry detergent. But it was too late. The machine had stopped, and they were beginning to feel the cold. There was no blow-up, no final scream, just the slow, suffocating weight of reality settling in. And in that heaviness, they looked to me again, not with defiance, but with need. I ignored it. One day, Chloe came home early. I was in the garage, fixing a shelf. She hovered in the doorway. I didn't mean it, she said finally. What I said that night. I kept drilling. The shelf needed to hold weight, unlike her apology. I was nervous and stupid. I didn't think it would land like that. It landed exactly how you meant it, I said. Words don't stumble out of people. They walk. She stood there, silent. I didn't offer more. I just thought, she said, voice breaking, maybe if I said sorry, you'd get your tuition back? She winced. No, I just thought maybe you'd forgive me. I set the drill down and turned to face her. Her eyes were wet, but I wasn't moved. Not anymore. Forgiveness is for the wounded, I said. Not the discarded. I didn't discard you. Yes, you did. When you opened your mouth in that room, you made a decision. You threw me to the crowd and hoped they'd laugh. And they did. I didn't think it mattered. That, I said, is the only honest thing you've said so far. She left. Quietly. No door slam. Just footsteps fading like echoes. Braden never apologized. But he hovered more. Lingering in the hallway after dinner. Nodding when I said good morning. I could see the guilt in him, thick and clumsy. But guilt is a seed that needs years to sprout. I wasn't sticking around to watch it grow. Lauren tried one more time. It was late. We were both in bed. Not touching. Not speaking. Just sharing air like strangers waiting for separate flights. I'm sorry, she whispered. For what? I asked. For letting it get this far. I looked at the ceiling. The fan spun slowly. Pointless motion. You didn't let it get this far, I said. You let it here. I thought you were stronger. I turned my head. I said. And you spent it. The next week, I met with a real estate agent. 2 months later, the house was sold. They didn't believe it at first. Chloe called it a bluff. Braden asked where we were moving. I asked. Lauren stared at the listing paperwork like it was written in another language. You're leaving. I'm selling. But where will we go? That's your choice. And you? Austin. I said. Small apartment. Quiet. No stairs. You can't just disappear, she said, tears forming. I can, I said. And I will. Chloe looked stunned. Braden looked afraid. Lauren looked like she wanted to rewind everything. But the tape was snapped. They helped me pack. What else could they do? I let them fold the shirts they never washed, carry the boxes they never filled. It was the only time they acted like a family. At the end, when there was nothing left to save. On the morning I left, Lauren walked me to the driveway. You really won't come back? No, I said. What about birthdays? Holidays? I smiled, not cruelly, just sadly. They're for families. She touched my arm. I stepped back. Don't make this harder than it is, she whispered. I'm not making it hard, I said. You just never believed I'd go. And then I did. Austin was quiet. My apartment overlooked nothing. No skyline, no lake, no gala halls with string lights and silk napkins. Just a parking lot and a tree with peeling bark. But it was mine. There were no footsteps overhead. No voices rising through the walls. No one asking for rides or rent or reasons. Just space. And silence. And something close to peace. They didn't call. Not at first. But the world tightens when the support beams vanish. Chloe texted again. A longer message. More tears. More apologies. She was working double shifts now. Said she missed the safety. Said she finally understood what it meant to feel unprotected. I didn't reply. Braden wrote one line. You were right. I stared at it. And then deleted it. Lauren tried to call. Once. I let it ring. Understanding had come. But so had consequence. And that's the part no one prepares for, the silence after the collapse. When you realize the foundation wasn't broken because of bad luck. It was broken because no one cared if the man holding it together was already crumbling. So I leave you with this. When someone calls you nothing in your own home, the most precise response is to become exactly that. Nothing. Gone. Absent. And let them discover what that nothing was truly worth. Now I ask you, was I wrong? Was I too late in drawing the line? Or was this the only lesson they were ever going to learn? You tell me, because I stopped answering.